the Nyaya school becomes very, very important. The Nyaya Darshana or the Nyaya philosophical school becomes very important. It is the school which set out some standards for what is a pramana, what is prama, what is knowledge, etc. So we'll find out a little bit about the Nyaya school and proceed forwards. So just to remind you all, what is the objective of this particular half of the session? It is to answer this how to. Okay, how to do I acquire knowledge means what are the various methods or what are the various means that I can adopt in order to acquire knowledge. Okay, so that is what we'll be trying to answer. And as I said, the Nyaya school is very important in this context. So it was, the founding figure is supposed to be the Gautama, Maharishi Gautama. But in this case, as well as in the previous case, I would like to clarify that just because I'm giving some name called Gautama or Kanada doesn't mean that there was no Nyaya before Gautama. It is not like that. It is neither the case that before Kanada there was no Vaisheshika. It is not like that. This is a very old tradition. What we have, the evidence that we have today is going back to Gautama. Before that, if there was some other person who had formalized Nyaya, we don't know. Okay, but with the evidence that we have, Gautama is the, let us say, the founding figure is a very misleading term. The systematizer of this, let us say, of this darshana is Gautama. So who lived also in the early part of the Common Era, and he is attributed as the author of the Nyaya Sutra. And at about 14th century, this acquired a very different turn in the Bengal area, Navadvipa area, under the leadership of Gangesha Padhyaya. That is called the Navya Nyaya turn, it is called. But those details are not important for us. What's important is that both of these Nyaya, as well as Prachina Nyaya, as well as Navya Nyaya, they carried out a very detailed inquiry into knowledge. What is knowledge? What are the various means by which we can acquire knowledge, etc. And they gave a systematic way in which we can think and infer and arrive at true conclusions. And they also gave the rules of how you should debate, what are the various things that you should avoid in a debate, what are the various ways in which you can do in a debate. So in a way, they provided answers to the how one question also, they provided answers. So in our day-to-day language, what is the, there are some chat messages. Oh, okay. Okay. In our day-to-day language, what is the word that you people use for knowledge? Can you tell me in some of the languages that are there? What is the word you use for knowledge in your native language?
Gyan.
Jnana. Gyan, Vidya, that is one word. Jnana is another word. So in many places, we find the word Jnan. Re jada gyan mat banto, like that we use in Hindi language. It is there. So I would like to clarify that the philosophically more accurate term for this knowledge is prama. Okay, so you have been seeing this triangle, isn't it? Pramatra, pramana, prameya. So that prama, that thing is common in all of them, isn't it? So what is that thing called prama? That is the more technically correct word or translation of the word knowledge. So we will find out a little bit about what this knowledge is. Okay, so according to the Nyaya tradition, knowledge is one specific kind of cognition. Okay, and the word that you people have told, jnana, etc., it is very philosophically, it is better to translate it as a cognition. So it is not knowledge. Philosophically, it is cognition, and cognition is anything that apprehends an object. Okay, so if I am having a cognition, it means that some mental apparatus is having a hold or apprehending this entity called bottle. If I am having a cognition of my emotions, it means that I am trying to have a sense of what my emotions are. I am trying to recognize my emotions. Okay, so that is the general more philosophically accurate translation of the word jnana. Any mental activity, you can term it as a jnana. Okay, in yoga philosophy, you call it chitta vritti, we call it. In this tradition, it is called jnana. Any mental activity, any cognition is called jnana. Now, when you are apprehending the object, you can apprehend it in a true way or you can apprehend it in a false way. True way means what? You are apprehending the object as it is. For example, if I am apprehending this bottle as being blue in color, then I am having a false apprehension. which means I'm not having knowledge. But I'm supposing I'm apprehending this, I'm having a cognition of this bottle as being yellow in color, then I'm having a true cognition. In some cases, we have this jaundice, etc. In that case, everything we see yellow, like that we see. I'm sorry, I don't know. I have never had jaundice, but that is what people say, that when you have jaundice, you see all yellow, like that you see. So in that case, supposing I have jaundice, if I see this book, it is brown in color, it will appear a little bit yellowish in color. At that time, I will be having a false cognition. I will be having aprama. So when the cognition apprehends the object in its true nature, it is called knowledge or prama. When it apprehends it in a false way, it is called aprama. And the Nyaya thinkers gave various kinds of aprama. For example, doubt or samshaya is a kind of aprama. Whether that thing over there is a bottle or is it a lamp, like that, supposing I have a doubt, it cannot be considered to be knowledge. Doubt obviously cannot be considered to be knowledge. Erroneous perception also cannot be considered to be knowledge. Supposing there is a room which is not lit properly, there is a rope over there. If you mistake it for a snake, that cannot be considered to be knowledge. And hypothetical reasoning also cannot be considered to be knowledge. Supposing I say, if we had started 5 minutes early, we would have avoided traffic. This kind of a statement does not constitute knowledge. Okay, hypothetical reasoning means what? You did not start 5 minutes earlier. So it is talking about something that did not happen. If I had studied properly in my engineering, I would have become very big person. But if I had studied, if you would have done, so sentences which have this kind of a formulation, the subjective conditional is called, those kinds of sentences are not considered to be knowledge. What is considered to be knowledge? Any cognition which apprehends the object as it is. So if I see the object in its true nature, then those kinds of cognitions are called prama. So this is the definition of knowledge. A true yathartha anubhava. In Sanskrit, it is called asandigdha yathartha anubhava. One definition is the following: error-free or doubt-free current cognition of a particular entity is called knowledge. Right? So what are the various ways in which I can acquire this knowledge? So this is the actual question that we are asking in this particular session. And the Nyaya thinkers came up with 4 ways in which we can acquire this knowledge. The word pramana means justification. What are the various ways in which we can provide justification for what we know? What are the various ways in which we can know, or what are the various ways in which we can provide justification for what we know? The Nyaya thinkers came up with 4 pramanas. The first one is perception. For example, how do you know that I am sitting in front, I am talking to you? How do you know this? How do you know that there is a mobile in your hand, or a laptop in front of you, or a computer in front of you? How do you know this? How do you know that you have hands? How do you know that you have two hands?
Through pratyaksha, seeing.
By seeing, by pratyaksha, by you are perceiving, like that you know. But we will come to some finer details later. But for now, this is quite clear. By perceiving things, we know that they exist. Another way in which we come to know something is that by inference. Okay, so for example, if your grandmother's footwear is outside the house, what does it mean? Supposing you are after office, you are going back to home, you find the footwear of your grandmother outside the house, or the footwear of your guest. आप दे दीजिए, no problem. But I am talking about.
पड़ा हुआ है। को इनसे कैश लेना है? कह रहा हूँ वॉलेट गाड़ियों में।
I'm on mute. So.
Yes, sir. Please carry on.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yes. Okay. So supposing you go back from office to your home, you go and you find the chappal of your relative kept outside, or the vehicle, or some car of your relative is there outside the house. What does it mean?
We guess that our guest has come.
Some guests have come. Have you seen the guest?
No, not yet. Yes.
You have not yet seen them, but you can infer. Okay. That is another way in which you can arrive at knowledge. Another way in which you can arrive at knowledge, according to the Nyayikas, is by comparison. So for example, somebody was telling, no, I have seen an animal, none of my friends have seen that animal, only I have seen that animal. Supposing you want to describe that animal to your friends, how would you describe? Array, it was looking like one lion, but it was having this peculiar characteristic, like that you will describe. No? So you will compare it with something that you already know by telling the differences or similarities like that. That kind of knowledge is called comparison. And finally, testimony or Shabda Jnana. For example, you go to some new city and you want to find out where how to go to a particular place. What you will do? Nowadays, you will ask Google Maps. Okay, so directly you will put the name of the place in Google Maps, and Google Maps will tell you where that place is. But supposing it is some village, it is not showing properly. What you will do? If you want to go to a particular place in some village, what is the first thing that you will do in some new place?
Ask someone.
You will ask someone. So the knowledge that you get from words of other people is testimony. So this need not be words of other people. It can be from books also. So for example, why do we believe that God exists? Because the religious, our religious texts say so. Okay, whatever sacred religion that you follow, whatever sacred books that are there, they say that God exists. So we believe that God exists. So these kind of sources are also called testimonial sources. So how do you know that so-and-so land belongs to so-and-so person? This particular land belongs to so-and-so person, because there is a testimonial authority in the form of a paper in which your name is written. This so-and-so person is the owner of this land, like that. Some testimonial power is there. So these are the 4 ways in which they said that we can acquire knowledge. These are the 4 means of acquiring knowledge. So now we can take a critical question. You can present it to your students. We can also do this exercise. So each of these knowledge, now you tell me from the 4 knowledge pramanas that I have told you, which of the pramanas is most suitable pramana for each of these knowledge claims. Okay, so the first is knowledge of existence of heaven or hell. From which pramana you know this?
Testimony.
Testimony, yes. Our sacred
Sabda.
scripture has told that heaven or hell is there, so we believe it. Has anyone seen here heaven or hell? You should not talk in metaphorical terms. Okay, the traffic in my city is hell, I say. So no, we are not talking like that in some metaphorical language. So literally, hopefully here nobody has been to heaven or hell till now, unless you are considering this lecture itself as a hell. So what we know about heaven and hell is from testimonial authority. What about the second one? Knowing which number should be filled in a Sudoku puzzle. How do you know this? What number should come in which box of the Sudoku? You have done Sudoku, no? Some people in the audience must have done Sudoku puzzles. So which pramana are you using when you are filling a particular box with a particular number? Which pramana you are using?
Inference?
Guessing or calculating.
Yes, you are calculating. Yes. Based on what are you calculating? You are calculating based upon the rules of Sudoku. You are calculating. In this row already 8 numbers are there. In this column already 8 numbers are there. Therefore, this number must come over here. So you are inferring. You are not directly perceiving that. You are not comparing. You are not getting from authority unless you are cheating. You are not getting it from some testimony. You are inferring based upon the rules of Sudoku. What number should come there? Okay. Absence of salt in the dish that you are eating. How do you know what is something you are eating? It does not have salt. How do you know?
Upamana.
Pratyaksha.
Upamana.
Pratyaksha.
Why you are telling Upamana, madam?
You're sort of trying to compare with the taste buds and try to compare with the other dishes that you have.
Oh, okay. So see, this is the distinct feature of Pratyaksha. You are not comparing it with anything. Directly your tongue is telling you there is no salt here.
Okay, perception.
Okay. Yeah, your gustatory organs are telling you that there is no salt in this dish. Okay, you don't have to compare it with the upma that you ate yesterday. Okay, to say that this has no salt in it. Directly you can tell that this does not have any salt in it. Okay. Okay. So look at the 4th one. The 4th one is somewhat close to what you are telling. Identifying a brinjal plant, having been told that it will have egg-like fruits growing on it. One of the names for brinjal is eggplant. No, eggplant it is called. So you are identifying the brinjal after being told that it will have egg-like bulbs coming out of it. What sort of knowledge is it?
Comparison.
Yeah, this is comparison. Okay, so you are comparing the what you know is what an egg looks like. You know what eggs look like. So you have, but you don't know what brinjal looks like. So somebody has told you that, see, the brinjal plant will be like the egg, like bulbs will come out of that. With that, you can identify the brinjal plant. So you go to the garden and you identify the brinjal plant. You have never seen it before. You cannot infer it, nor has somebody told you directly what the brinjal looks like. They have told a similarity with what you already know. Okay, the last one. What is the value of a stock at the end of a quarter or a day?
Anuman.
You can
Inference.
from inference. You can you will have some stock analysis, some model you will have, some qualitative data or some formula you will have. So in our economists do this, you know, they find out what will be the projected GDP of our country in the next quarter or something like that. How they are doing it, they have some model, they have some formula based upon which they will infer that what is going to be the GDP of our country, or what is going to be the foreign deficit, or whatever it is called at some point of time. So that is an example of inference. Okay, so like this, you can also give various problems to your students and ask them to find out which is the most suitable pramana for these things. And here is a critical thinking question for you. Do we use any other pramana in our modern day research? Can they be understood or explained in terms of Nyaya pramanas? So do you think that I have left out any pramanas that we are using today? Can you think of any research methodology or any other way of generating knowledge which cannot be included in these four? Can you think of it? Does anyone want to share? Is there any such research methodology which cannot be put under those four things? I'm sure there are research students, faculty, and other students also are there, UG, PG. So is there any other way that you are using which is not, I cannot put here? Experimental work. Okay, so experimental work that you are doing, we cannot put in this area. So experiment does not directly give you knowledge. Okay, at the end of the experiment, so can you give me an example? What sort of experiment? Let us say that very famous experiment. I can think some litmus test experiment. Okay, this is very famous, isn't it? If you put a litmus test inside an acid, it will turn from red to blue. If you put the litmus paper in the base, it will turn from blue to red, or whatever it is. Okay, now this where you will put, for example, if you ask me this question, where you will put, in which of the pramanas you will put, what I will say is that I will put it under Anumana. This is called Anumana. I put the litmus in the base, it has turned blue. Therefore, from this I infer that this is an acid. I put the acid in litmus in the base, it has turned blue. I infer from that it is the base. So experiment, I am able to, this experiment at least, I am able to put in the form of a Anumana. Supposing I do an experiment to find out whether smoking causes lung cancer or not. What do? I take questionnaires. I monitor the health of so many people. I put one graph over here. I put another graph over here. I do some null hypothesis here, some alternate hypothesis, one bell curve, something like that. I will do some, what is that called? Some one variable ANOVA, two variable ANOVA, something like that I will do. And based on that, I will infer whether my null hypothesis is falsified or whether my null hypothesis cannot be falsified. So it is a kind of inference only. Many of the things that we do in our day-to-day life, apart from Pratyaksha, more or less they will come under this category called Anuman. If you disagree with me, you can tell me, no, you are just trying to hop around the thing. This is not Anumana. We are not inferring. The experimentation is a totally different method of acquiring knowledge. So you can find out. In experiment itself, there are thought experiments also. The experiment is not actually, for example, Einstein did a thought experiment, the twin thought experiment. One twin is there in the earth, another twin goes and travels at the speed of light and comes back. So this experiment was never ever performed, but these are thought experiments. So they are also Anumana devices in order to convince the other person about the nature of light and how it influences age. So any other knowledge that you think that is excluded from these four? So for a lot of Indian knowledge traditions, these 4 knowledge means were sufficient. You will see the same 4 things written in Charaka Samhita also. You will see the same 4 things written in Jyotisha Shastra also. You will see the same 4 things written in Rasa Shastra, wherever you see. There was nothing separately called research methodology apart from these 4 in the Indian tradition. Okay, these 4 pramanas were deemed sufficient to find out scientific truths also. So I am taking a simple pramana like Pratyaksha pramana to know that there is a bottle in front of me. I am taking a simple pramana like Pratyaksha pramana to tell that the bottle is yellow in color. This much is sufficient for me to tell that so and so person has diabetes. I can look at that person's discoloration or whatever it is, and I can say that this person has so and so disease. It is anumana. I can tell that this fellow has disease. No separate thing called scientific method, research methodology, etc. is required for us to find out knowledge. So this is a very unique feature of Indian knowledge traditions. The Nyaya came up with these 4 pramanas. They were more or less accepted by other darshanas also. Of course, there were some disagreements. They did not accept it just like that blindly. Some people added a few more things, etc. But more or less, they were in agreement that Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Shabda, they are more or less the same. We don't need a special kind of Pratyaksha for scientific truths and special another normal kind of Pratyaksha for day-to-day life. Is it clear? So these 4 pramanas were deemed sufficient. What about this second question that I have put yesterday in the inauguration session? One of the faculty, Professor Ajay Kapoor, Ajay Kumar, he was telling that IKS for commerce is different, IKS for science is different, etc. And then as a response to that, Professor Bajpai Saab, he told that knowledge is knowledge. There is no such thing, different things, etc. So do you agree with this claim, or do you think that different streams of knowledge have different methods? No. The methods of commerce are different from methods of anthropology. The methods of anthropology are different from methods of theoretical physics. They're not the same. Do you think like that? What do you think? Is it the same or is it different?
They are the same, I think. Knowledge is knowledge.
Knowledge is knowledge. That is what the Nayayika would say. See, what you are telling, you are running some fantastic experiment in the Large Hadron Collider. Okay, no problem. You are solving very advanced equations, etc. But philosophically speaking, it is a form of Anumana. Philosophically speaking, it is a kind of Pratyaksha. You are seeing the particle over there. That's all. It doesn't matter whether it is a quantum particle or whatever particle it is. It is a particle. You are seeing the particle. That it is Pratyaksha. That's all. When an anthropologist goes and makes field notes about some tribe, that fellow is doing Pratyaksha. He's recording the Pratyaksha because that fellow does not have photographic memory. That fellow is making notes about whatever that fellow has seen. It is a report of Pratyaksha. Similarly, when a finance person makes some model to find out what is going to be the projection of this stock at another time, it is a kind of Anumana. You can use Bayesian methods, you can use statistical, SPSSA, SPCA, whatever it is, MATLAB, GitLab, whatever you want, you can use. But finally, you are using Anumana, right? Okay. Assessment parameters may be different. But finally, philosophically, I don't know whether the person meant it as an objection to me, but I agree. Yeah, assessment parameters may be different, but philosophically, it is a kind of Pratyaksha or Anumana or testimony. You can say that this is gold standard data. You can take it just like that. No need to verify this. It's a kind of testimony only. This data has been.
Sorry, it's the same difference between sadhan and sadhya. The sadhya is the same. The method,
method is the same. Yes. Method is the same. It has gotten more and more sophisticated. Okay. So earlier, our astronomers in our country were using naked eye perception to see Saturn and Jupiter, etc. They were using the naked eye. Now we are having very advanced telescope like James Webb telescope, Hubble telescope, etc. But what we are doing with that? We are doing perception. If our normal vision is not helping, we put on spectacles. That does not make it a separate method altogether. It is still perception only. It is aided perception, but it is still perception. So what the Nayayikas would say is that, see, for us, knowledge is knowledge. And to get knowledge, these 4 methods are sufficient. Whatever other methods you suggest, we will subsume it under one of these 4 methods. And this idea was acceptable more or less to the other sciences also. In Ayurveda, in Jyotisha, in Arthashastra, whatever it is, these 4 methods were deemed to be sufficient. Okay, so you can further think about it. We can take it up for more discussion when we have time. 1 second. Okay, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so we will get a few more details about each of the pramanas before we go to other things. The first most common way of getting knowledge is pratyaksha. This means direct contact between the senses and the corresponding object. What do I mean by corresponding object? For example, the corresponding object for the visual perception is form, the form or the color of a thing. The corresponding object for the nose is the smell. The corresponding object for, not for the nose, sorry, the olfactory sense is the smell. The corresponding object for the gustatory sense is the taste. The corresponding object for the auditory sense is the sound. The corresponding object for the tactile sense is the touch. So each sense gets in contact with the corresponding object and knowledge arises. And we use it very commonly in our day-to-day life, and in some cases it could be ordinary, in some cases it could be extraordinary. What do I mean by extraordinary? For example, you remember what I told you, they have to explain reality both physical as well as non-physical. Okay, so we have in our culture, in our tradition, we have great yogi babas, all are there, who have seen devas. Okay, they have seen God, etc. In South India, there is a saint called Tyagaraja. He has seen Rama. We believe that he has seen Rama. Okay, so this kind of extraordinary yogis are there who are able to see the future. Clairvoyance they have, so they are able to see. So those kinds of yogic perceptions also are counted under this extraordinary perception. And not just these extraordinary perceptions, some other things also are counted under this extraordinary perception. For example, you tell me from your own experience, have you used this kind of a sentence in your day-to-day life? Oh my God, it looks very hot outside, let us not go out. Have you used this kind of a sentence? Oh my God, that looks very tasty. Have you used this kind of sentence? Oh, that
quite often.
That looks very tasty. You see that sentence? That looks very tasty. There is a problem over here, no? Looks is a visual perception, whereas tasty is a gustatory perception. How you are putting the two in a sentence? In the same way, it looks very hot outside, let us not go. When we say you are seeing and feeling the heat, that's not possible. Heat is something that only the tactile perception can have. Visual sense cannot have the perception of heat, but still we use it in our day-to-day life. It looks very hot outside. It looks very cloudy outside. We don't, it looks very, let us say, cold outside, let us say. Cold is another tactile perception, but you are saying looks, which is an object for visual perception. Similarly, you say it looks very tasty. Okay, so that looks is a visual perception, whereas taste is a gustatory perception. So in order to explain these kinds of sentences also, they have resorted to something called as extraordinary perception. It's called Jnana Lakshana Pratyaksha, but the details are not important. I'm just telling that in these different kinds of perception, not just this mundane perception, but even the perception of yogis and these kinds of perceptions that we have, using prior experience. Yes, they attribute it to prior experience. Earlier we had the experience of heat, that is why we are able to use it now. So that is what they do, but they count it as one of the types of perception. And one important difference between the modern theory of perception and the Nyaya account of perception is that it is a phenomenological account rather than a physical account. What does this mean? It means that it comes from the person. It is a subjective experience rather than a physical experience. You tell me many times, in this theory, what happens is that the sense object goes outside and comes into contact with the object. So if I am seeing this bottle, what science will tell you? It is because light is falling on the bottle, the light is getting reflected on your retina, the retina is, the image is inverted, the inversion is re-inverted back in our brain, in the cortex, like that they will tell you. The Nyaya theory will tell exactly ulta. The visual sense goes outside and gets attached with the object, and then the manas sees the object. From inside, it goes outside. This is how they distinguish from the modern theory. Some of you, have you experienced this in your life? Many times you get up in the morning and you just stare at the wall like that you keep on sitting, and then your mother or a parent or somebody comes, hey, kya kar rahe ho, utho, like that, late ho gaya, like that, kya dekh rahe ho, like that, then you say kuch nahi, like that you say, isn't it? Many times it happens. And sometimes you are searching for something in your table, so many things are there, you are searching for something, You are going on searching, you are not finding. And then you call your parents, your mother or father, you call, "Arey, please help me find this." They immediately come and pick it up and give it to you. How it is possible? If you accept the physics theory, the light from that entity is continuously hitting your retina, isn't it? Huh? That is not never stopped. But how come you are not able to see it? That is because your sense was not in connection with the object. The light from the object was falling on your retina. That is all physics, no problem. But your sense was not in connection. Your visual sense was not in connection with the object. That is the reason why you were not able to see the object. So the Nyaya theory of perception is more a phenomenological account rather than a physical account. Absence of mind, but our mind did not recognize. Rather than saying our mind did not recognize, what they will say is that our sense did not even come in contact with that particular thing. After that, the mind once comes into contact with the sense. Okay, so yeah, why does that absent-mindedness? Yeah, the absent-mindedness, assuming that you are looking at it properly. I am telling this example. The Sannikarsha did not happen. Yeah, the Sannikarsha between the sense and the object did not happen. So in physics, it is ulta. The light has to do Sannikarsha with your retina. But in Nyaya account, the sense has to do the Sannikarsha or contact with your object that you are seeing. Whatever it is, the key feature of pratyaksha is that there is no mediation of any other pramana. So directly I am seeing bottle, that's all. Like how I was telling, no, how do you know that there is no salt in this dish? I don't have to compare it with any previous dish. Directly I put it in the mouth, I know. I don't have to compare it at all with any other thing. So there is no mediation. There is an immediate nature about the perceptual knowledge that we get. So these are some of the details about pratyaksha. The second thing that let us find out about is shabda. It is a testimony of a reliable person or a source. It can be some holy scriptures also, or it can be textbooks also. Some of you, those who are in the first year or second year, some textbook will be prescribed to you by the university board. So whatever is there in the textbook, you will take it, it is true. Okay. So whatever is written in our constitution, we have to take it as true. Whatever is written in the IPC. Yeah. Is it a question? Pratyaksham kim pramanam? One definition of, if you want the textbook definition, yeah, okay. One textbook definition is Indriyartha Sannikarsha Janya Jnanam Pratyaksham. That is one definition. Indriya, getting in contact with the senses, is, yeah, okay, thank you. So coming back to this Shabda, if some textbook will be given to you, you have to accept that. Whatever is given in constitution, we take that as authority. Whatever is given in the IPC, we take that as an authority. Whatever is given in UGC guidelines, though it clearly says guidelines, all of us take it as Vedavakyam. So many of my teachers, colleagues may be suffering because of that. I express my solidarity to you. But yeah, anyway, that is a different topic. So the important thing is that this is a very this Shabda Pramana is of very particular importance for the Indian traditions, because we value Shabda Pramana sometimes much more than other Pramanas. So in the Charaka Samhita, there is a section in the Charaka Samhita which says that if you are having any doubt, first thing you do is refer the old books. Okay. After that, you go and do experiment. After that, you go and do whatever other pramanas that you want. Okay. Because unless you consult the previous books, you won't even know what you're looking for. Okay. So we place a very great premium on this Shabda Pramana. Whereas in the Western tradition, they are very, very skeptical about this testimonial knowledge because of some historical events that happened over there. For them, it has to be pratyaksha. You have to show me either based on equations or something like that. You have to show. Okay, I will take these questions later. I will complete this and take the questions at the end. So in the Indian tradition, on the other hand, Shabda Pramana has a very high value. The next pramana is Upamana Pramana, which is comparison or analogy. As I said, you don't have to always compare using similarities only. You can use dissimilarities also to compare. So for example, if nobody has ever seen a Nilgai in their life, a Nilgai looks like a deer, but it has very long horns, straight horns. It does not have this kind of breadth-wise horns. It has only a length-wise horns. It has. I can tell him like that. So if that person goes to some part of Rajasthan or UP where the nilgais are available, that fellow will be able to identify the nilgai based upon the similarity of what he already knows how a deer looks like. But at the other, sometimes I might have to point out the dissimilarity. So what is the difference between the wrench and a spanner? Somebody has never seen a wrench in their life. I have to tell them that a wrench is like a spanner, but instead of having like that groove, it is different because it has a screw over there. So I am telling a difference between what a spanner looks like and what a wrench looks like. So that is called Vaidharmya Upamana, or telling somebody based on a dissimilarity. Another type of analogy is telling the unique features, asadharana dharma. So for example, I tell you, you have never seen a giraffe in your life. Okay. So I tell you, you go to the zoo, you will find an animal. It has a neck. It is so long, you have never ever seen in your life. Okay. You will easily identify it has the longest neck. You will easily identify that is the giraffe. So you go to the zoo, you don't have to compare it with any other thing. It is the longest neck you have ever seen. You can tell that it is the giraffe. In the same way, for example, you have seen zebra. A zebra, it will have patterns, striped black and white patterns like no other animal. You can easily identify. It looks like a horse, but don't worry, it will have black and white patterns. You can easily identify that it's a giraffe. It's a zebra. So you can identify that it is a zebra based upon the unique properties that it has. So the same thing can be used for comparing markets, how Indian market is similar to Brazilian market, how the Indian market is dissimilar with the Chinese market. For example, you can use this kind of an analogy in order to explain to them what is the difference between these markets. So you can use the Upamana Pramana to explain those things also, not just these mundane things that I am telling about. No, other things also. You can use Upamana Pramana to explain dishes also. For example, nobody has ever eaten paneer do pyaza in their life. Okay, so you can explain to them what is paneer do pyaza. So they have eaten some paneer burji, something they have eaten, but they have never eaten paneer do pyaza. So you can tell them what is paneer do pyaza, how does it taste, etc. They have eaten pulao, but they have never eaten biryani. So you can tell them that the difference between pulao and biryani. Some of you may disagree, but especially when it comes to vegetable biryani. But yeah, that is another way in which you can tell what is the. Oh, sorry. Okay, you are able to see my screen? Okay, I will take the silence as.
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is another way in which we acquire knowledge by comparing it with what we already know. Now we come to the very more important pramana, which we use in our scientific research. We use quite a lot, which is anumana. So anumana, you can translate it as inference. And to tell you the etymological meaning, it is anumana. So that is knowledge which or cognition which follows a previous cognition. The word mana is for cognition, anu is to follow, anucharan karta hai, like that we say, no. So that anu is to follow another cognition. So the cognition which follows another cognition is called anumana or inference. So based upon the cognition of the car standing outside your house, you had a cognition that, oh, some guests have come. So this cognition followed the previous cognition of the car. So that cognition that your guests have come to your house is called anumana, and it is based upon the invariable connection between what is previously known. You know, 100% guarantee this car is that person's car only. No other person has this car. I know this number. This number belongs to that person. So there is an invariable connection between that guest and this car. So whenever this car is standing over there, it means that the guest is there inside my house. So based upon that invariable connection, you are trying to infer that somebody is there in the house. Similarly, smoking causes lung cancer. Oh, that person smokes a lot. Oh, yeah, I'm sure he's going to die of lung cancer someday. How you know this? Because you think that there is an invariable connection between smoking and lung cancer, and therefore dying. Okay, that person, you know, he is doing that kind of a job. I don't think you should be with him. Why that kind of a job? Some 420 type job, let us assume. Okay, some do number ka kaam kar raha hai wo. Don't be with him. Why? Because you are relating that kind of a job with some moral traits or some ethical traits. So that is why you are telling don't mix with that fellow. So based upon some invariable connection between two things, you are trying to arrive at new knowledge. That kind of knowledge is called anumana. So in this anumana, 4 elements are very, very key. The first thing is the reason based upon which you are coming to that inference. In the example that we have taken, the car that is there is the reason or the hetu. Okay, based upon which you are coming to the conclusion, which is the second most important point, that is the sadhya, that is the conclusion. What you are going to infer, that the guests have come to my house. So based upon a reason, you come to the conclusion. So the first most important thing is the reason. The second most important thing is the conclusion. And the third most important thing is the invariable connection between this reason and that conclusion. So in Sanskrit, we call it vyapti. It has a very strange translation, invariable concomitance, we call it. You can just say invariable connection or something like that, you can say. So there has to be an invariable connection between the reason and the conclusion. And lastly, the most important point is the locus where you are doing this inference. So where have the guests come? The guests have come to your house. So the house is the paksha or the locus in which this inference is happening. So you can just note these four down, these four elements. Hetu is the reason, sadhya is the conclusion, vyapti is the general connection between the hetu and the sadhya, and paksha is the locus where the hetu and sadhya are said to be present. If I take one example, if I explain to you with one example, it will be clear. Oh my goodness, what happened? Oh, okay. Okay, have you noted this? What the four key elements of an anumana? Hetu and sadhya, vyapti and paksha. These are the four things that go into the making of an anumana. So let us take one simple example. Okay, here is one example. Force, sorry, it is not forced, it is force. Force has been imparted to this ball because it has motion. Okay, that is the argument. Force has been imparted on this ball because it is moving. So you tell me, what is the sadhya over here? What is that you are trying to prove? What is the conclusion? It is there on the screen. You can just, yeah. You are trying to conclude that force has been imparted on this ball, or what you are trying to prove is the force. Based on what are you trying to prove this? Because the ball is having motion. So that is the hetu. And where are you trying to establish this force and motion? In the ball. So ball becomes the paksha, the hetu becomes, the motion becomes the hetu, and force is the sadhya. And what is the general rule that you are going to apply over here? Wherever there is motion, there is force. Remember, it is not the other way around. It is not wherever there is force, there is motion. Okay, if you put your hands against a wall and try to move it, it will not move. Okay, force is there, motion is not there. So it is important to formulate the vyapti sentence properly. Wherever there is motion, there is force. Or you can formulate it as wherever there is no force, there is no motion. Okay, and you have to give one example. This is a very important thing. You have to give one example, like in a cart. The cart also is, somebody is applying a force to the cart. That is why the cart is moving. In the same way, this ball is also moving because a ball is also moving. Therefore, somebody must have applied force to it. Okay, this is one simple example. Could you identify how could you find out how to identify the hetu, paksha, sadhya, etc.? This is a very rich or very fertile area for giving problems to your students. So for example, you can give these kinds of products, questions you can give to your students to test whether they have understood it or not. You take the first example. Since the product K is a convenience product, our pricing should be low. Can somebody tell what is the sadhya over here? What is it that you're trying to prove? What is it that you're trying to prove? What is the sadhya over here?
Pricing.
Pricing what?
Product. Pricing the product.
Yeah, what are you trying to prove about the pricing?
Low means
pricing should be low. Okay. And what is the hetu? What is the reason you are stating?
Convenience.
It is a convenience product. It is a convenience product. And what is the paksha? What is it that you are telling should have low price?
Convenience product.
Which is that convenience product here in this example?
K is
the paksha. So how your anumana? K is a K price must be low because it is a convenience product. Like you should give an example. So what is the general rule over here? whatever is a convenience product must have low pricing.
Pricing.
Like what? You should give an example. You should give one example. What is the example of a convenience product which has low pricing?
Toothpaste has
Toothpaste.
Salt.
Sorry.
salt. Yes.
Salt, etc. Shampoo, gimpo, whatever it is, you can give that example. Okay. Take another example. Let us do that. COVID-19 cannot survive in India because of our tropical climate. This was told. You remember in 2020, early 2020, people were telling this bogus thing. I wish it was true, but it was not true. So yeah, what is the paksha over here? What is the paksha? First, okay. First, identify the sadhya. What you are trying to prove? What are you trying to prove? What is the sadhya?
The virus cannot survive.
COVID-19 cannot survive. That is what. Why it cannot survive? What is the reason?
Tropical climate.
Because of tropical climate. Where are you trying to prove this? India. So how you will formulate your anumana? India will not have COVID-19 because of tropical climate. What is the general rule? How you will formulate the general rule here?
Tropical climate.
Virus will not survive in a tropical climate.
To be more accurate, you should tell the general rule in this format. Wherever there is tropical climate, there the COVID-19 does not survive. In this way, you have to, like we told, no, whatever is a convenience product, it should have low pricing. Like that we formulated. No, in the same way, wherever the tropical climate is there and all, COVID-19 will not survive. Like, you should give an example. What example you will give? You give some Brazil, Kenya, something like that. You give, okay, which have the tropical climate, and because of you think that the same conditions will come over there, you can give that example over here. Okay, so is it clear? You can give similar examples like this. You take this fourth example, okay, from ethics. Boxing should be banned since it is a form of violence for entertainment. What you are trying to prove? What is the sadhya? What you are trying to prove?
Banning of boxing. Boxing should be banned.
Banning. You are trying to prove ban. Why it should be banned? What is the reason?
Violence. Violence is used for entertainment.
Violence for entertainment. What is it that you're trying to prove? What is the paksha? Where you are trying to establish this?
In
entertainment.
In boxing. No, not in entertainment. In boxing. Okay. So boxing is the paksha. Okay. So boxing should be banned because it is a form of violence for entertainment. How will you formulate this general rule? The general rule, how will you formulate? Whatever is a form of
violence
for entertainment should be banned. Like what?
Like boxing. One
Like
example.
You should not give the same example. That is a circular argument.
Like Jallikattu.
Jallikattu, buffalo racing, rooster fighting, bull fighting. You can give these kinds of examples. You can give. Okay. So this is how you generate you can give many more examples. You can take any argument and you can give to your students, and you can ask them to identify the hetu, the sadhya, the paksha, formulate the general rule, give one example. Now I'm going on stressing on that example. I am telling what is the importance of example. This example is very, very important in the Indian logic. It is very, very important. You take this argument over here on the left side of the screen. Okay. In Greek logic, this argument is perfectly fine. All men are pink. Raghavan is a man, so Raghavan is pink. In Greek logic, this argument is okay. It's perfectly fine. But will you be convinced if I give you this argument, will you be convinced that Raghavan is pink? No, you will not be convinced. The reason is that this general rule that is there in the first statement does not come with an example. Are you able to recognize the general rule in the first statement? All men are pink. That is a general rule. Okay. As soon as you convert it into a nyaya kind of anumana, you will have to give an example. All men are pink. Like one example, you will not have an example. Therefore, the argument will not go through. Okay. This is the reason why the importance of example in anumana. And why it is important? Because like in Greek logic, we are not aiming at being simply valid. We have to get to truth. You see, what is anumana? Anumana is a pramana. Pramana leads to what? Prama. Prama means what? True knowledge. True knowledge is apprehending the object in the true way, isn't it? So you have to latch on to reality. You cannot simply be happy saying, yeah, my argument is logically valid, so I am happy. No, that is not sufficient. It is not sufficient if it is logically valid. It should be latching on to reality. It should expose reality in its true essence. Then only it is considered to be a pramana, or else it is not considered to be a pramana. So this particular logical argument from the Greek side, it will not be considered as a pramana. It will not be considered as a legitimate anumana, because it does not latch on to reality. It does not take us to pramajnana. Is it clear? And the one logical criteria that allows us to come to pramajnana is the example. Unless every general rule comes with an example, it will not work in an anumana scheme. And just like somebody who has allowed me to demonstrate, you should not give the same example that you're trying to prove. It is a circular argument. So if I am trying to ban boxing, you should not give boxing itself as an example in the general statement. You should give some other example. Okay, so is there I hope the importance of example also is clear. It is because the pramana or the anumana is not given simply for logical happiness. It is given so that your anumana takes you to reality, takes you to truth. And unless it takes you to truth, it is not a pramana. So that is why every general rule must come with an example. Okay, so that is an important clarification that I wanted to give. Once you have identified the hetu, paksha and sadhya, you should set it out in a standard format. Okay, I was telling you, in a vada, you have to set out your argument in a systematic way. What is that systematic way? This is what I am presenting. In a 5-step way, you have to present it. First, you have to present your hypothesis, your pratigna. In Sanskrit, it is called pratigna. What is in the example that we have taken? Ball has force imparted to it. That is the example that we have taken. Or in the example that we were taking, some guests have come to my house. That is the hypothesis. Then I have to establish the main reason. What is the hetu? Because of the car standing outside my house. This is the main reason. Okay. Then I have to set out my general rule, whatever I have, along with an example. Whenever this car is standing over there, some guests have come to my house, like yesterday. Okay, so that you have to give the general rule with an example of where you have seen a similar instance in some other situation. Then you have to establish that the current situation is like the previous instances. Okay, you have to establish that the current instance is like all the previous instances. So today also, this car is standing in front of my house, just like on the other day. Or in this particular case, this ball is also like the car. And finally, you come to the conclusion, hence it has force imparted to it, or hence guests have come to my house. So I have given the Sanskrit words on the leftmost column. In the second left but one column, I have given the general form of that statement. And then I have applied it to the current argument that we are discussing. And then finally, in the rightmost column, I have tried to explain that in modern research methodology terminology. So the pratigna is your hypothesis, what you are trying to prove. And the hetu is the main reason. What is your key piece of evidence that you are having in order to support your hypothesis? Then the udaharana combined with the general rule is you are trying to establish a sufficient relationship between the main reason or the evidence and your hypothesis. And by giving examples, you are providing prior studies. So many of you, when you are doing your research, you should write one section called literature survey. Yes, all of you have to write one section for literature survey. So that literature survey, what you are doing, you are presenting prior studies. Okay, what other people are telling, similar to whatever it is that you are telling now, or dissimilar to what you are telling now, you are presenting as a literature survey comes under what you can understand as the udaharana. And then you are establishing that the current case is comparable to the previous studies. This happens very much often in legal arguments. In the legal arguments, what happens is that the lawyer tries to establish that the current case is very much like one case that happened in 2012. So because in that time you gave this kind of judgment, now also you should give this kind of judgment. So you have to, just by giving a lot of literature survey, it is not sufficient. You have to prove that the literature survey has something to do with what you are going to write. So if you are writing something about God and you give some literature survey about sodium atoms, it is not going to serve as literature survey. So you have to establish that the prior studies are very much linked with the current case. And then based on this, you can come to your conclusion. So if you look at the argument, the first statement and the last statement seem very similar, isn't it? So the first statement is ball has force imparted to it. Last statement, hence it has force imparted to it. What is the difference? Are you able to identify a difference? What is the difference between these two? They look very similar, but what is the important distinction between the two?
The last statement is sort of in a conclusion form. So we have proved it.
Yes, we have proved it. In the first statement, it is still in a hypothetical state. We do not know it. It is not prama yet. But once the anumana is accepted, the nigamana is considered to be prama. Yes, this is accepted. So the hence plays a very important role over there. Okay, so it establishes with evidence that the hypothesis is true. It is no longer simply a hypothesis. So you can give this as the same examples that I have taken in the previous slide. You can give them to the students and tell them to set it out in the standard anumana format. So for example, how you will do for the first argument, K is the pricing of K must be low because it is a convenience product. Whatever is a convenience product must have low pricing, like salt. This K is like salt. Therefore, its pricing must be low. So in a systematic way, you have to set out your argument. This is the standard form in which an anumana was set out according to the Nyaya Darshana. Is the general form clear? Any question, some details anybody wants at this point? So any argument you give me, I should be able to set it out in this particular format. I should be able to set out what the hypothesis is, what you are trying to prove. I should be able to tell what is the main key piece of evidence that you are using in order to prove that hypothesis. I should be able to find some general link between your main reason and your hypothesis, and also to collaborate, and necessarily in this particular case, it's not just added masala. It is not like that. You have to give some prior studies which are very much like the current case that you are considering. And then you have to establish how these two are similar. And then finally, you can come to your conclusion. Okay. So let us take this last example to try and do it. Okay. God must exist. Look at how perfectly the world is designed. It could not have been done by any human agent. How would you set it out? First of all, what is it that you're trying to prove? What you are trying to prove here?
Existence of God. Perfectly designed.
Look at how perfectly the world is designed. You are telling, look, that is not what you're trying to prove. You are trying to prove God exists. Okay. Many times the conclusion will not come in hence, because, therefore, like that it will not come. So you have to be interpreting properly. Okay. So here you are trying to prove that God exists. What is the reason? What is the main evidence for you to say that God exists?
The world is designed properly.
The world is designed in a perfect way. So how will you set it out in an anumana format? If I ask you, how would you set it out? The first statement will be what? What will be the first statement? What will be your hypothesis?
The perfect design of the world shows that God exists.
No, that is a very complex statement. Go back to this particular example. You just have what?
God exists.
God exists. That's all. That is your hypothesis. What is the second statement? What is the second statement will be? What will be the second statement? Look at this. What will be the second statement?
Because he has
the perfect because of the perfect design.
Because of perfection in design of the world. First statement is God exists. Second statement will be because of the perfection in the design of the world. Third statement will be what? What will be the third statement? Wherever there is a perfection in the design, there God's existence must be there. What example you will give here? Wherever there is perfection in design, there and all, God must be there. What example will you give here? You cannot give God again. You understand? It will become circular. Sorry?
The growing of trees. The trees are growing perfectly.
The brain.
The trees are growing perfectly. The trees, human.
You cannot give trees. You cannot give trees because you are already talking about the world. So that is
Yeah.
included in the world.
Okay. Okay. Right.
So
Right.
this is what you can formulate the general statement in the ulta way. Wherever there is, for example, wherever there is not existence of God, there is imperfection in design. Okay, like here you can give example. Wherever there is not a human agency, wherever there is non-divine agency, there is imperfection in design. Like you can tell, no, bottle, pot. You can give these examples. But the world is not like that. The world is perfect. Therefore, God exists. So you can formulate the general rule both as a positive and as a negative. You see this example over here. Wherever there is motion, there is force. You can formulate it ulta also. Wherever there is no force, there is no motion. So in the same way, you can do it in the current argument that we are taking. Wherever there is a non-divine presence, there is imperfection in design, like in a bottle or a pot. This world is not like this pot. Therefore, God exists. You can try and do this argument. You set it out in front of your students, and then you see what they do, whether they agree or not. Monument design. So see all this. So monument design, you can take it as an example of human creation. So wherever there is non-divine entity, there is imperfection in design, like in the monument that has been constructed. This leaning tower of Pisa, it is leaning. So it is imperfection. So you can give that like the leaning tower of Pisa. The world is not like the leaning tower of Pisa. Therefore, God exists. Okay, so is it clear how the argument has to be set out in a systematic format? So you have to use these 5 statements which are of this form in order to set out your argument. Okay, so coming to the various types of argument, the Nayayikas tried to find out what are all the various types of arguments also. So they gave 3 types, Purvavat, Sheshavat and Samanyato Drishta. I will very briefly, I will tell what these are. So inferring the effect based upon the cause. That is one type of inference. So for example, as soon as you see clouds coming on the horizon, what will you infer? It is going to rain. So this is an inference of effect based upon the cause. On the other hand, supposing you get up in the morning, you get up and you find that okay. So supposing you get up in the morning and you find that the entire building ground, everything is wet. What can you infer? What will you infer?
Rain. It rained
it has
last
rained.
night.
It has rained last night. So what you are doing over here, from the effect, you are inferring the cause. So that kind of an inference is called as Sheshavat. Sheshavat Anumana, it is called. Somebody was telling in the beginning of the class, they were telling that they will take a sample. They will take a sample. Those kinds of arguments are also coming under the Sheshavat Anumana. If you want to find out whether the rice in the pot is cooked, what you will do? You will take a few grains and see if they are cooked, and if they are cooked, the entire pot is cooked, isn't it? So in the same way, the sampling works. That is also an example of sampling. So all arguments which come from sampling will come under Sheshavat. Another example of Sheshavat Anumana is inference based on elimination. For example, you are going to pick up your, let us say, your mother or father, you are going to pick up in the railway station, but you don't know which platform the train will come. Okay. But luckily, when you go there, there is already a train standing on platform number 1. So what will you infer? What will you infer?
That is the train, because that is the only train.
No. That's okay. That's a different train. No, okay. Your mother is coming from Mumbai, okay, but the train standing over there is Kolkata train, okay. So it is standing on platform number 1. So what will you infer? You
like
don't
it
know.
Should be on some other platform. So we will look now.
There are only 2 platforms. 2 platforms are there. One platform, the Kolkata train is standing. So where will the Mumbai train come?
On the other platform.
On the other platform. So this kind of a reasoning is called eliminative reasoning, or in logic it is called disjunctive syllogism. It is called. So many people are maybe writing competitive exams. they don't know what is the right answer, but they know what is the wrong answer. So A, B, C, D, 4 options are there. D is not the answer, A is not the answer, D is not the answer, C only may be the answer. That's all. So if you have eliminated all other possibilities, whatever remains has to be the answer. So those kinds of reasons are called Seshavat Anumana. And then the Samanyato Drishta is any other kind of non-causative reasoning you can put under this. So when you see planets moving from one place to another place, so if you see Saturn here today and next day you go and see Saturn, it is there, you can infer that it has moved. Just like we move from one place to the other, you have also moved. You don't know what is the cause or any such thing. You can just say that it has moved. Planets have motion because I have seen here. So one day it was here, another day it was here. So these kinds of non-causal reasoning will come under Samanyato Drishta. So briefly, I'm just telling what are all the various schemes they used in order to classify the Anumana into various categories. While doing this argument, you should avoid fallacies. Okay, so just like I got to demonstrate to you one kind of fallacy, which is called circular reasoning, which is here in Sanskrit, it is called Prakarana Sama. So you are using the conclusion itself in the proof. So I was trying to establish boxing should be banned. You are using boxing itself in the example. So you should not do like that. That kind of a argument is called a fallacious argument. It is a Prakarana Sama, or it is a circular argument. Another kind of fallacy is Vyabhichara, which is the reason can prove both the conclusion as well as the opposite of the conclusion. So that kind of a argument is called a Vyabhichara Hetva Bhasa. Supposing I tell you, crows can fly because they have wings. Crows can fly because they have wings. Why is this argument problematic? Crows can fly because they have wings.
Other birds can also fly.
No, other birds can fly. That's a different thing. I'm concerned about crows. Crows can fly because they have wings. The problem here is that wings are found even in flightless birds. Penguins also have wings. Ostriches also have wings. Kiwis also have wings, but they cannot fly. So the reason that they have feathers or they have wings, etc., is found both in flighted birds as well as in flightless birds. So the reason can prove both the conclusion as well as the opposite part of it. Those kinds of reason are called Vyabhichara. Is it clear? The reason can prove both the conclusion as well as its opposite. Then it is called a Vyabhichara Hetva Bhasa. The second kind of Hetva Bhasa or a fallacy is a Viruddha, where the reason you have taken actually contradicts what you want to prove. Okay, so for example, I take some argument like this. Okay, from commerce I am taking, from cricket, I will take from cricket, hopefully it will. Kohli should open the batting because his average in that position is 12. Supposing I say Kohli should open the batting because his average in that position, in the opener position, is 12. What is the problem with this argument?
The score is very less.
Yeah, the average is very less. Yeah, the average is so less. Means in that position, he is not a good batter in that position. So he should not be opening. Okay. So the reason that I am giving is contradicting whatever it is that I am telling, whatever it is that I want to prove. Take another example. The demand for this product, whatever it is, will increase because the prices have increased. The demand for this product will increase because the prices have increased. What is the problem with this argument?
Because with increase in price, demand decreases.
Decreases, yeah, actually. So ulta, actually, what I want to prove, my reason contradicts it. So when the prices increase, the demand for a product goes down. Okay, so in order to prove that the demand will increase, I should not give this kind of a reason. If I give, it is called a Viruddha. A Sadhya Sama is something where the reason itself requires proof. This is also called fallacy of presumption. In some places it is called. So for example, I can give an example. Abortion should be banned because it is a form of murder. Supposing I give this, abortion should be banned because it is a form of murder. What is the problem with this argument?
So in general, we are talking of murder only when there is life. So maybe, it depends what months are we talking about.
Correct, exactly. In other words, you have to first of all prove that abortion is a form of murder. Okay, your reason itself you have to prove. So the argument was abortion should be banned because it is a form of murder. You have to prove that first of all. You have to prove abortion is a form of murder. Then only the argument goes through. Take the previous example that we were taking. God exists because he has created this world. Supposing I say God exists because he has created this world. What is the problem with this argument?
We have to prove that he has created this world.
Yes, that is a point. You have to prove first of all that he has created this world. So the reason itself requires proof. Therefore, it cannot be used as a reason. So in the case that we are considering, I am able to see in front of my eyes, the car is standing. I don't have to prove it. The relative's car is standing in front of my eyes. I don't have to prove it. The reason is something that is taken for as accepted. Based on that, you are coming to new knowledge. But the reason itself, if it requires proof, then it is a bad reason. Okay, so these fallacies you have to try and avoid when you are doing your argumentation. Okay, right. And many times in our argumentation, I was discussing about rhetorical tricks. I am just presenting a few rhetorical tricks over here that are used. You should not use them in Vada, but you can use them in Jalpa, etc. You can use them. Here is an example of a rhetorical trick called Chala. Okay, Chala, meaning of that is you are deliberately twisting the words of the opponent in order to suit your argument. You see this poster that I found. Singapore is a fine city. Are you able to see what is funny about this? What is peculiar about this poster?
There are all fines here.
But what is
Fine
the
city.
Fine city.
fine
Adjective.
city? Yes.
Yes.
There the meaning of the word fine is very good. But here the meaning of the word fine is some penalty. So you are using the same word in two different ways. Okay. Many times you can get through an argument by equivocation. This is called in logic, modern logic, it is called equivocation. You are using one word in one sense in one part of the argument. Same word you are using in another sense in another part of the argument. By doing this, you can escape the opponent. If the opponent is very smart, that fellow will catch you. That's all. It's a city with lots of fines. Yes, yes. So actually what the poster means is that Singapore is a city which imposes many fines. That is what the poster means. But very cleverly, they have put Singapore is a fine city. So this is a form of, this is called Vakchala in Nyaya terminology. It is called Vakchala, where the same word is being used in two different senses. You see here, another example. This is an actual headlines from Times of India from 2016 to 2020. Yeah, you see these headlines. After 9 months, women's body to get new head. Can you find out what this article will be about? Can you guess?
An association, women's association.
Yes, some women's in Goa, there is some national that Goa branch of the Women's Commission or something like that. It did not have any president. Now it is someone has been appointed as the president. So, but they have written it in this way. You see, after 9 months, women's body to get a new head. As soon as you see this, what is this? Some black magic, something like that. You will think. But here the word body is being used in the sense of association, and head is being used metaphorically in the sense of a president or something like that. So what is told in a metaphorical way, if you take it literally, or what is told literally if you take metaphorically, that is another kind of a rhetorical move. So Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose is a "Tum mujhe khoon do, main tumhe azadi dunga," like that. Immediately you should not go and stand with one bottle of blood and say "Bhaiya azadi de do," like that. You should not do. So what he meant is "Tum mujhe khoon do" means you lay down your lives fighting for this army, then you will get freedom. That is what. So that is a metaphorical way in which he is telling. You should not take it literally and go and start blood donation camps and all. You should not do that. So those kind of tricks are called chala, or deliberately twisting the words of the opponent. Another kind of rhetorical trick is called jati, which is called a superficial analogy, getting carried away by analogy. This happens very often. I give one analogy, people get carried away by the analogy. So here is one example. Soul is a substance, that is it's a dravya, because it has properties just like a pot. I have given that pot only as an example of a dravya, but that fellow got carried away by the properties of the pot and said that, oh, then if it is like a pot, then is the soul also, is it made of clay? No, bhai, what is this? I am giving it only as an analogy to prove that it is like a substance, like a pot. Don't get carried away by the analogy. So if the opponent starts to exploit the specific features of an analogy, then this is called a rhetorical trick called jati. Okay, so many times it is important not to get carried. The analogy should be used only for the purpose that it is being told. If you stretch it beyond that purpose, the argument will go away, and you being the arguer must catch it. You should tell at that time, right, I gave that analogy only for this purpose. Don't stretch it beyond that purpose. You should be able to clearly tell that. So these are some of the rhetorical tricks. And then how do you find out whether the argument is over or not? So those kinds of positions are called nigraha sthanas, or defeat situations, or clinchers. What these are is not very important for us. As I was telling you, the Nyaya tradition itself gave up these ideas at a later point of time. But I told you, right, the knowledge was produced in a Vada format. So somewhere the Vada has to stop, isn't it? Somebody has to say that, okay, now the discussion is over. This person has won. Somebody has to say that, right? What are the criteria that we can use? So these 22 criteria we can use in order to find out who has won the debate, who has lost the debate. Some of these situations are logical reasons. Like, for example, if some person has contradicted themselves, then that person has lost. If that person has not provided good reasons, that person has lost. If that person has provided false reasons, that person has lost. So those are logical reasons. Some are procedural reasons. So for example, if that person has not used the proper 5 steps, then that person has lost. If he is going on repeating themselves, then that person has lost. So for example, another way is being silent. Okay, if you are silent in an argument, it means that you have lost the argument. Another criteria for losing the argument is not calling out rhetorical tricks. So if I am using the rhetorical trick and you are not able to identify that, you have lost. So the moderator will say that, hey, he has used a chala, you have not identified that, you have lost. So these are some procedural ways in which the argument can be put to an end. So this is not very important for the research methodology purposes, but just because it is there in the tradition, I am mentioning these details. So putting it all together, what we have learned over the last 3 hours or so, all knowledge, how the question that we started it is, how did we produce this much knowledge that we produced? The answer is that all knowledge is produced based upon some prayojana, some purpose. The knowledge seeking exercise starts with solving some purpose. I have a purpose, I want to solve that purpose. That is why I start seeking new knowledge. Okay, I start seeking new knowledge. What is stopping me? It's stopping me because I have a doubt whether the knowledge that I have is sufficient to solve the problem that I have. So what I do, I enter into a vada. I mostly enter into a vada. And while doing the vada, I give evidences. I evidence in the form of pratyaksha, evidences in the form of an anumana, evidences in the form of an upamana, evidences in the form of a shabda. I give evidences. Based on the evidence, I come to the conclusion. That conclusion should not be in objection. That conclusion should not be in opposition to the theory that I have told already. So that theory, if it is not in opposition, it gets added to the existing bank of knowledge called Siddhanta or theory. And whatever that theory may be, it will be about any one of these 7 padarthas. Sorry, one that Samavaya is missing over here. I'm sorry about that. So it will be about these 7 categories. It will either be about Dravya, it will either be about the guna, either about the karma, or the samanya, or the vishesha, or the abhava, or the samavaya. It will be only about these 7 entities. So you can see how on this side you have the prameya, or the objects of inquiry, and on this side you have the procedural aspects, and on this side you have the psychological aspect, and in between you have the epistemic context. So how all of these have come together in order to generate new knowledge in the Indian knowledge tradition. So with this I end. So if you have any questions or anything you want me to clarify, some 10 minutes are there, we can clarify it. Yeah, just so any point was not clear or something you want me to elaborate on? So all the pramanas, I hope they are clear. So how you can spot these things I have taken from day-to-day life. You see, you can also spot in your newspaper. You can find out who is using chala, who is using jati, etc. You can find out and you can use them. where the purposefully there many times when the politicians are caught saying some controversial things, what they will say? What is the defense that they will give?
AI is twisting my words.
They are twisting my words. They are taken out of context. Something like that they will say, isn't it? So they will accuse the other person of chala. So they are twisting my words, etc. So yeah, so these things happen even today. Yeah, so the Heva Bhasas, I hope they are clear. What are all the fallacies that you should avoid? You should not give, check the comments. Yeah. Okay. So any other questions specifically to do with the Anumana, or you can think about this question that I had asked, this critical thinking question. Is there any research methodology that is any way of knowing which cannot cover in these four ways? For example, the Buddhists don't accept these four ways. Okay, they accept only Pratyaksha and Anumana. That's all. They reduce everything else to either Pratyaksha or Anumana or a combination of these two things. They have not added more, but they have subtracted. They have subtracted Upamana and Shabda from that list. Yeah.
So I think you have explained it so well that they have understood it. So they do not have any other question to ask.
Yeah, that's in the beginning I was telling that joke. We have to accept like that. When students are silent, either they have understood everything or they have not.
Or they haven't understood anything. Absolutely.
Yeah, there is no samshaya at all. Yeah. So for more further reference, you can always refer to that chapter 7, I think, of chapter 7, of that textbook that was shown. It is very much accessible. Chapter 7. The most of the material is from there, though the examples and all these things that I have put from my courses that I have been teaching related to this. But yeah, you can material wise you can see from there. So,
okay, so if none of them have any questions, so we can finally wind up the session.
Sure. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
I'm not able to see the comments, madam. Sorry, my system has hung. Just if you can see the comments and tell me if there are any questions there.
So they all are just thanking you for such a wonderful session.
Everyone is just overwhelmed by your session.
Yeah, so then I will just close. I am not able to see, my system has hung itself.
So I may read one of the compliments. It was indeed an excellent session. However, it will take at least me some time to assimilate a lot of new things and understand them.
Yeah. And you can always refer to that, as I told you, for more references. Yeah.
Ma'am, I want to ask a question, ma'am, if it is possible.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, this is Dr. Ashutosh Parikh from Ajmer, Rajasthan. And I want to ask that we heard about Charvak.
Charvak.
Yes, sir. So the Charvak philosophy, there is only Pratyaksh Praman. So why they are accepting only Pratyaksh? There might be a reason.
Yeah. So for them, the argument is that the Anumana, there is a very important step. You see, there is a step called general rule. If you remember, there was one step called general rule. For every Anumana, you have to give a general rule, isn't it? They question, how can you know this general rule? So take the example that I had given. If this car is standing outside my house, then the relatives have come here. Okay. So the general rule is, whenever this car is standing, the guests have come to my house. The Charvaka will say, how do you know this? It's possible that somebody came and left the car and went away, no? Isn't it possible? How do you know that how do you know that every time that the car is there, the relative is there? Have you seen all past instances? Do you know all future instances? You don't know. Then how will you be able to say? The standard example that is taken in the tradition is that wherever there is smoke, there is fire. The Charvakas say, how do you know this? Have you seen all instances of smoke? Have you seen all instances of fire? No, you have not seen. So you will not be able to say that this general rule is true for all three times, past, present, and future. Therefore, because it is an important step in your Anumana, it is not accepted. Nobody knows these general rules. That is the reason why they do not accept Anumana. If you know a little bit of Western philosophy, the same problem was expressed by Hume also, David Hume. the Scottish philosopher, Scottish, I think so. Yeah, he also expressed the same problem. It is called Hume's problem of induction. It is called the Hume's problem of induction. It is called. So he also expressed the same problem. So how do you know if there is a one billiard ball is here, another billiard ball is here. If I strike this billiard ball, it will go and strike this billiard ball. How do you know that this billiard ball will move? It is logically possible that this billiard ball will go and this will just vanish. It is possible. Logically, it is possible. How do you know that this billiard ball will cause this another billiard ball to move? So it is not possible. It is not possible to prove these general rules. Hence, Anumana is not a Pramana. That is the answer.
Okay, so then with this, we can wind up the session.
Yeah.
I request STP convener Dr. Shikha Makar to deliver a formal vote of thanks.
Sorry, I have a question. What's the name of the book that you said? Name of the book?
Indian Knowledge Systems, Concepts and Applications.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the author is...
Ma'am, I'll share the link of the book in the Indian Knowledge System WhatsApp group with you all. Okay. Thank you. On behalf of the entire STP team, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Raghavan for taking out time and delivering such an enriching session, which is in the interest of all the participants and all of us. Thank you, sir, for sharing the vast repository that you have of knowledge. It was indeed overwhelming to know the rich knowledge, traditions that India has, and the fact that we have so much to learn from it. Thank you. Thank you for enlightening all of us with your wisdom. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very much grateful.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye.
A few announcements for our participants. We would be soon sharing the MCQ link with you all by email. You will receive the emails by 6:15. And I hope you all have marked your attendance. If you haven't, please do so for session number 2. Thank you. We look forward to having you all tomorrow. Please do join at 2:20 p.m. for tomorrow's session. Thank you, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I haven't received the attendance link.
It was shared in the group, ma'am. We'll share it once again so that you can all.
Okay. For the second session, for the first one, I have already done it, but for the second one, I can't see it.
Okay, ma'am. We'll just share it. We'll share it in the chat box once again for all those of you who haven't filled your attendance for session 2. Okay. Thank you. The link is now there in the chat box. All those who haven't marked their attendance may do so. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah. May I leave, madam?